Okay, folks, good morning. Well, we need to do some rearrangement here on the table because we're running out of space. So I'm on a bit of a tear doing some German half-tracks. So I'm going to move these other things off to the side. And that's why I enjoy doing what I'm doing now as opposed to doing the ancients and stuff that from before, is because when I was doing the ancients and before, if I got off track, even though I was still working on stuff, it was working against me. I had this timetable where I needed to get things done for a show to be able to play a new army. And since we're not in that mode anymore, I can do whatever the hell I damn well please. As long as I'm working on something, I mean, really, what does it matter? It's not like I'm sitting around not working on things. Or I'm sitting around working on things and they're turning out not to my liking. Neither one of those two things are happening. So, with that said, we have been flooded with German half-tracks. And the things I needed to work on anyways, and just never felt the oomph to do it. So, these three we've had for a while. We've had these are actually toys, so to speak. They're pre-painted and then repainted. These are, I believe, made by Altaia. I got these on an estate sale a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And that's as far as I got with them. And these are the two recent 3D prints from Jose. So we're going to sift these. We're going to move these guys off to the side because they've got new friends. And sometimes you just feel like airbrushing stuff, right? And that's what it was last night. I didn't even have time to go online. I just had time to airbrush some things, and it took. I'm actually glad I wasn't filming it because I had a bit of a jam. The needle or the nozzle, I'm not really sure which one it was, that I used for the black base coat just didn't want to work. I wanted to jam on me and stuff, so I had to fight with that for a while. So something that might have taken an hour and a half ended up taking 3 hours. But we got another set of the 3D prints done, or at least the theme of what they're going to look like got done. And then halfway through, I realized, oh shit, I used the wrong color brown I didn't want to use on this one. I actually wanted to use the darker brown. So we'll see how it goes with that one. Maybe I'll actually like how it looks better. And I think I'm going to attach this machine gun to this. I should have done it ahead of time. I wasn't sure if the radio version got it or not, but we're going to paint this separately and then add it on there. I don't want to get bogged down with the details too much. And details meaning like, okay, what kind of baggage do I want this one to have, or the numbers. That's the thing I'm really going to have now that I've got them all laid out. I'm going to get them all to this point and then realize, okay, what am I going to do for the numbers? Because there's all kinds of different numbering schemes. They're not going to be part of one unit, so there's going to be variations in them. But some of them have like hollow white numbers, some of them have just black, some of them have ones that really stand out. It doesn't make sense to have ones that stand out a lot when you have some camouflage that's obviously trying to hide something to make the numbers like you could see them, a mile away. So what we're going to do with these, because it takes a little bit of time to dry, is we're going to add the strong tone wash from Army Painter. and we're just gonna let them sit, and then we'll move back to working on the other ones. So I don't want to accidentally pick something up from that one. Of course, most of these are gonna have machine guns in the back. We'll paint those separately as well. You start putting a lot of things on there, and then you've got to work around those items when you're trying to paint the other stuff. But you can see these all have, let me use a recent one. This is the color it's painted, and then by the time I'm done with it, it looks more like this. So you're like, oh, that's just really light colored. Well, don't worry, it's gonna change quite a bit. I know some of you have asked me, well, why don't you make a video on it? I can't make a video on it because I need a helper. And I don't have a helper to make videos. It's not, I can't do the videos, but somebody's got to keep it in frame. Like, hey, dude, move it over there a little bit. It's out of, I'm working on this. It's harder than you think. Actually, doing this isn't hard at all for me. It just takes a lot of steps. This part's easy. Might seem like it's not, but it's easy. What's difficult is keeping everything in frame, etc. And then, not making silly mistakes. Like having a great airbrush scheme, like on this one. My airbrush scheme was coming out great. I was doing this over here. It's like, man, it's really, because I'd cleaned my airbrush so well to try to get that black to work, and it didn't. I fought with it the whole time. The black undercoat. I finally got it to come out, but come out well. And then I did I did some really good camouflage schemes. And then what ended up happening was I ran out of air. And what the hell happened? Well, I had taken a break to go to dinner. And then when I came back, I knew I'd left the airbrush ready to go. And I just assumed, I didn't even think about it, that I had left the pressure in, and I didn't. So the pressure just started. It wasn't a big deal. It's just a silly mistake of, if this was a life-threatening situation, I'd be a little bit more careful. But, human error kind of stuff. So I'm sure that happens to a lot of people. They're just not willing to talk about it. But I like to mention that because even with all the errors that happen, this is still going to come out brilliant. Because there isn't that many problems per se with this that need to be fixed. Make sure we don't have any of these little tufts. I wonder if that's dust. Well, it's not cat hairs, that's for damn sure. Or dog hairs. All right, what was it that I did that I thought was brilliant? Okay, I'm holding on to the suspension, and then we'll do that last. Yeah, because my normal reaction would be to paint the suspension first, but or wash the suspension first. But when I do that, I don't have anything to hold on to, and it's easier to manipulate this in your hand like this than have it at the end of this. So again, just like we did with these other ones, we're going to make sure that this doesn't go on super thick. I just wanted to give it some brown intonations. I got an email from YouTube. I don't know what it means, but here's what it said. Starting on such and such a date, I don't even know what it is, sometime in the near future, sounds like within a month, they're going to automatically dub people's videos into other languages. And I think what that means is that you're going to be able to listen to me in another language I don't speak. So that's cool. On the other hand is, what the hell am I going to sound in, some other language? And how do I listen to that? Because I'm kind of curious, like I don't necessarily care if it's, something I don't speak, like Chinese or something like that, but how do I sound in Spanish? I don't know. Is there that many people would actually be interested in this feed if they that don't speak English? I don't think so. So I don't know what that means, but I did get that email. I wonder if I could opt out of it. I guess there's no harm in it as long as people are aware, hey, this isn't your real voice. Then again, I am kind of curious what nerd burglar is in Russian. Yeah, see, this already looks better. And you look at this and you're like discouraged, like, man, this doesn't look like anything of the pictures that they show you. I said, yeah, well, there's more to it. Just, you know, make sure you don't jump out of the plane until your parachute's on. Okay, now what we'll do at this point, now we'll clip this on. And now, why do I have so many German half tracks? Well, let me tell you a story. I've probably bought two of them, and they were the gray ones. I have two, I may have three gray ones. Well, technically, I bought these pre-paint ones, but I got them for like $1 each at an estate sale. I'm pretty sure anybody would have bought that if they did this scale. And then one 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Jose gave me in Spain. So, the advantage of having a lot of something, like, okay, I need 3 half tracks for this scenario. Oh shit, I got 8. The advantage of that is that you don't have to decide, oh man, I'm only going to build 2 of these. Which one of the 400,000 different paint schemes am I going to have to narrow down my choice to? Like, just paint them. You have so many of them that you're going to do, just paint them. Like, I'm going to do snow in the next 2 years. I keep pushing that back. I'm going to give myself 2 years. I'm going to do some snow stuff. And I'll guarantee, I'm not going to guarantee, let me not guarantee that. Well, what I was going to say is some of these I could change them into a snow one because, when you have snow camouflage, when they put the whitewash on it, there was a camouflage on it before. So, and some of that peeks through. Like if you look at like any German vehicles that were on in Battle of the Bulge, they weren't just completely dark yellow and then they painted the whitewash over them. I mean, some may have been, but the vast minority would have been that way. So you're going to have to whitewash over a vehicle that's already camouflaged. Well, if they're already camouflaged and done, so I'm probably going to do one of them that way and see if that's a viable tactic. In other words, just use one that I painted, about a year before, more than likely, at some point. So I think that's all this little guy is going to need. Yes. Just do this underneath for good measure. And you can see just by doing that, just by doing the brown undertone, we've already changed the color quite a bit. Because you look at this, like, this looks like, light avocado. Especially when you add green to something that's like this Dunkelgelb color, it brings out the green in the Dunkelgelb and it looks like it's a lot more green than it is. So we're going to put this up here in the roost to dry. Trying to keep it relatively vertical. All right, let's do the one that looks like it's got the measles. The mortar carrier. Anybody on? Anybody on? Anybody out there? All right, the one that's got the measles. Just try to do a variety of, and all these half tracks have a bit of a pattern due to the 3D printing, but they almost disappear. Well, this has some little boxes here for the ammo. And I do have some crew members for some of this stuff, so some of these may have crews inside of them, or have crews inside of them that are removable. I know I could probably make my own stuff, but I'm fine with their formula. I got to sub something out. I got to keep somebody in business. And these bolts on the side of this thing came out really well. In other words, they're pretty prominent. And that might just be whatever print he chose to use. Now, I found some references. It was interesting. I was talking about a couple days ago. This is probably the most common of the German Halftracks, the D model. I know it is. Just from the production, the production on all German vehicles went exponentially higher when in 43 and 44. These guys started coming, the Aus D started coming out right about the time that the Kursk was happening. Early 43, and it's a matter of did any of them make it to the front. And I found a reference on this particular model half-track. And it was interesting because it gave me the proportions according to it. I guess, am I gonna clip on this eventually? It gave me the proportions of how many of each of these they made. So about 25% of all of them that they made were just the standard ones with just a half-track, 251/1, just with a half-track, just with a machine gun, just the troop carrier ones. So 25% of the 251D series were all 251 ones, which honestly, I thought was kind of low. I would have thought that 50% would have been just the standard half-track. But it was definitely the biggest group of the 251Ds was ones that were just armed as the troop carriers with machine guns. This is not one of them. This is a specialized one. It carries an 81 millimeter mortar. I think the German one's 81. Maybe it's 80. 8-centimeter mortar. I don't like using centimeters for ordnance. I prefer to call it a 37 millimeter anti-tank gun than a 3.7 centimeter anti-tank gun. Go for it. Welcome. You too, man. Hopefully you have the day off. It's closer to being a day off over there, I would imagine. Okay. So 25% were just standard 251s with a machine gun troop carrier. The next biggest group, according to this reference guide, I say that because, well, you told me what was wrong. I said, hey, I'm just reading what somebody that's an experten supposedly said. If I tell you wrong shit, it's accidental. The next biggest group if I remember correctly, was the engineering versions. Like 20% of them were the engineering versions, or 17 or something like that. That's, I'm really surprised. And then all the other ones make up the other. There might have been another category of how many of them were the radio versions. This is one of the radio versions that, from what I can tell, this is the equivalent of the early war one that had it almost had like a big bed spring. So this actually has at least 2 radio antennas here. This is the command one. So I was surprised that the engineering half track was the second most common one. Now, this is where I encounter some information that makes me think, I better be careful. Let me think about what I do before I do it so I don't regret it. I've seen engineering half tracks, whether they're the B's or C's or D's, that normally have a machine gun here. And then this particular print came with a 28 millimeter and a tank gun. Squeeze bore. I can never remember what it is. Squeeze bore. So the way I understand it is squeeze bore, and this is, I read the thing. I can never remember this. This is just one of those weapons that I don't know a whole lot about. But it's basically a special round that's 28 millimeters in the back, and at the muzzle it's 20 millimeters. So it tapers, so it squeezes it even, it reduces in size. And it's this special ammo that uses tungsten, which the Germans didn't have a whole lot of. But it gave this little gun a lot of penetration. Like it penetrates, God, I want to say almost as much as like a short, like a 50 millimeter, like the 50 millimeter gun that's in the Panzer III. Not the long 50 millimeter, but the shorter one. The 50L42. I'm guessing. Which is pretty nasty for, something that's on a half track. I mean, you can take out another half track real easy with that, or a light tank or something like that. And I'm talking about from the front, from all sides. That's a nasty little gun, but they've had very limited tungsten supplies to do that. So what I read was, because I wanted to know, like, how common was this? How common was the machine gun one? So after a while, they just stopped producing the gun because they couldn't make the ammo for it. And it looks like definitely the latter half of 1944, you're not going to see these. So this is going to be like a, right after Kursk type of thing, really early 44, because they just got rid of those guns because they just didn't have any ammo for them. It was using resources they didn't have. Rare earth minerals. I don't know if that would be considered one of them, but the Germans didn't have much of it. But it was a nasty little gun. They made it as an anti-tank gun as well. I mean, they used it like in North Africa and stuff like that. So I look at, 28 millimeter taper bore and I'm thinking, oh, that's a late war weapon. Well, it wasn't. I mean, they didn't have an invasion of Poland, but so I may, because I'm a bit of a crafty fucker, not attach it and give them an optional machine gun mount for this thing as well. That's actually probably a good idea, now that I thought about it. So I've got extra little pintle mounts. Because they didn't, you see something like, I want to use this in, like, say, something in Normandy. There's a good chance it doesn't have that. It'd have a machine gun in it. So, to be continued. This is going to be a weird painting weekend. I got to take the wife's car in for maintenance on Saturday, tomorrow. So that means that we're going to have a shorter session than normal tomorrow. We're still going to have one because if not, I'm in a bad mood. If I don't paint in the morning, me no happy. But we're not going to go into like 9 o'clock or something like that. I got to be done by 7:20, something like that. Longer than a work morning, but shorter than a normal weekend. And then we got some other things happening this weekend that don't normally happen. So I'm not sure how that's going to play into my schedule. Now, if we could just make it through today, because it's been a long week. I'm going to retire this one for now. It's starting to get a little... starting to get a little weird. Where's the new bag of these things? Cheap ass brushes. Yeah, we're taking our time doing this. We want this to come out well. Yeah, I'm ready for the weekend. It's been like a week of what people like to call a week of Mondays. I would call it a week of Fridays. 'Cause I'm tired. Come Monday morning, I'm not tired. Come Friday morning, I'm tired. This is probably one of the messiest things that I do. This and black-based things black, but that's because the black primer just is harder to get off your fingers. But all of it comes off with hand sanitizer. And all these items that I put over this, whether it's this wash or the primer coat, the reason I choose to use them is they have properties that are generally keep air bubbles from forming and popping. So there's something annoying when you give something a wash. You're like, man, everything looks great, and there's an air bubble you haven't noticed, and as it dries, that thing pops. And when it pops, the paint underneath there never got touched. And this doesn't happen very often with this wash because of something it must have in it. And it doesn't happen, it happens more often with a wash than with a primer. It really doesn't happen with a primer. The primer's got some, I like to say it's like lubricated, but it goes on, even though it's a water slash I think it's a polyurethane base, but it's water cleanup. And there's something in it that just, it flows into all the cracks and crevices. Almost like an enamel paint. See, this looks a hell of a lot better. It looks closer to what it's supposed to look like than it did before I added this wash to it. And what I'm doing right now, like just kind of going over it lightly, I wouldn't be able to do with the Games Workshop one. It would like catch and peel off the underlayer, and well, that's why I don't use it anymore. It's not as user friendly. All right, now this one can go in the roost. And these will be ready to mess with tonight. We'll take them to the next step. Maybe we won't do that. I'm running out of space there. Okay. And now the engineer one. Let me tell you right now, this is going to need to be on one of these things. And I'm not sure why this has a double gun shield, but it does. I need to watch a video of one of these things being fired. It'd have to be one in period, because I don't think anybody modern day is going to manufacture a bunch of tungsten ammo just to see one of these things fire. And I was reading that the lifespan on the barrels of these things wasn't very high. It was like 500 rounds. All right. I like how they did the driver's compartment. They just freaking sealed it. It's just completely enclosed. If you wanted to put a driver's figure in there, which I don't, but if you wanted to put a driver's figure in there, you'd have to cut his legs off. A lot. And his arms. You need to pick up some more of this stuff at some point. The wash. I'm going through it like, I'm not going through it that much. It lasts a while, but you use a bit on each one. And every vehicle gets it, so. Now I think, well, hopefully after this I got some time to black base some spare parts. I think I do. This is the last one. I'm not gonna go back to dry brushing the other ones this morning. But we're gonna do something cool that I think I have some extras of to be able to do that on these vehicles. So I don't have good hearing. Literally, I don't have good hearing. I had ear infections when I was a kid, and some of my hearing disappeared. But I hear everything low. And I'm always surprised why there's like, it's 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm hearing like this low drone. And I don't really live in an industrial area, so something out there is making some noise. Somebody's big old Bubba truck or something. So I've got to do a little bit of digging, do some comparison, and see if I can't crack the code on this, on the German half-track numbering system, at least for 1944. Just for looking at examples of pictures. I think I kind of, I've got a guess on how I think it's going to work. I think I have a guess on how I think it's going to work. All right, I'm just going to grab that like that. We'll leave this on the stick. I think I got a good inkling. So I've seen 3-digit numbers on them. And I've seen 4-digit numbers on them. But the 4-digit numbers on them, I've only seen ones that have 1000 series, like 1002, 11 something, 1104, stuff like that. So I suspect, and the half-tracks, now that I think about it, I don't think I've seen the numbers of the 3 digits that are higher than 400 and something. I haven't seen half-tracks that have 934 or something like that. So the numbers are still going to mean the same thing. You're going to have company number, platoon number, vehicle within the platoon, just like the Panzers. Now, like I was talking about earlier, if I'm going to do Panthers in Normandy, all the Panthers were in the 1st Battalion. So that would be ones that would basically start with 100, 200, 300, 400. And the 2nd Battalion would be 4, 5, 6, 7, would be 5, 6, 7, and 8. So you'd have 2 tank battalions, at least on paper, in the Panzer Division. The first one would have the Panthers in it. The other one would have the Mark IVs in it. That's textbook how it's supposed to be. There's some divisions that had 2 Mark IVs. There's some that were depleted and only had 1 battalion, etc. That's the way it's supposed to work. Now, in a German Panzer Division, you're supposed to have the half-tracks, or the motorized infantry, are in 2 battalions, generally, I think, if I remember correctly. And they're all supposed to be in half-tracks. But even the most elite units only got half of them in half-tracks. So if you use the same logic, we'll put all the half-track infantry in Battalion 1, then they would have the 100, 200, 300, 400 series numbers on the half-tracks, not the 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then if you have the 1000 series, that would be the ones that were basically battalion assets. So if I had a platoon leader vehicle here, which I don't, and I may modify one of these to be a platoon leader vehicle, having a 37 millimeter, just I wouldn't do one of these. I would do one of these pre-paints. Remove this whole mount and put a 37 millimeter, which I have a lot of, and make it the platoon leader's vehicle. This would be like the one vehicle. And I wanted to do, say, first company. This would be a vehicle that would end with a 1. The 3rd digit would be a 1 in it, if it was the platoon leader's vehicle. Because there was a fair amount of them. I mean, you still need some of those platoon leader vehicles, because they're, 1 in every 4 is going to be a platoon platoon leader. So every vehicle that ended in a 1 would be the platoon leader's vehicle. This is me just kind of brainstorming things, you know? And then I'm going to go look for photographic evidence and see if it supports that. But when you get to these specialized vehicles, that there's not that many of them in a battalion, like these engineering things. I've seen engineering that have 1,000 series things. That makes sense. Okay, these guys are not part of a company. They're part of the battalion assets. So therefore, that's why they start with a 1. So that's probably what I'm going to do. Is this one's going to have a 1,000 series number. Probably the same thing on the command half track. And I'm not sure where the mortar fits in there. I want to say that there was a mortar carrier within each company. So if it was a second company, it would be like 202 or something like that. But I need to come up with a logic of why I do it, not just arbitrarily like, I like the number 5. Let's call this one 745. It doesn't make sense, you know. Anyhow, so we got a couple things to black base. One of them was that pintle mount machine gun. Here it is. The one on the front. And there was something else I wanted to do that also with. Look at the spare parts that he gave me. With these prints. And one thing that he gave me, and I'm like, why are you giving me this stuff? But it has this extra suspension that I don't need because all of them came pre-built. So I've got 3 tracks of extra suspension. So we'll just set those off to the side. A couple extra Panzer 38 turrets. Well, they actually weren't extra, but I decided to use them instead. But I got some front tires that are extra, and I saw a picture, a photograph. That's what I should call it. I should call it a photograph. Recently, where somebody had attached one of them to the front as a spare tire. Now, it may have been that they did that and it didn't have the hub on it. So I need to check that, but I could totally see adding some extra spare tires to that. And some of these side ones all along the way. And I got some pintle mounts here with MG34, which is handy because I've got some earlier versions that don't have it. Special pieces of track. I think this is the track for the half track. Kind of hard to tell. I have to take a look at it. Some jerry cans. You know, but we're going to add those things after we've got it painted. So I'll have to look. I think I'm kind of screwed because I think that they, not kind of screwed, but I don't think they use these with the hub on them. I'll have to look and see if I see evidence of it or if it's just the spare tire by itself. Could be something, you know, to do on a couple of them to be that way. So they look different. So we'll have to look into that in the next couple days and see if we see evidence of that. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and primer this. Now this is why I've got 2 of these. This is the one that there's not a whole lot in, and I keep it inside. I have one that's more full. It's for airbrush. And there's, I don't know, probably this much of this in here. But this, the great thing, there's probably better primers out there. I've been pretty happy with this one. And one of the things that I'm really happy about it is it brush paints really well. And, you know, I could have brush painted these black, but man, it'd take a while on a big surface area. Because you kind of like, as you're painting, if you're painting a very large area with this, you're kind of wiping it off as you're painting it. And I don't want it, you know, it's going to take a lot longer. So it's quicker to use the airbrush for it and give a better finish, even though this is self-leveling to a degree. Just notice this is missing part of the machine gun there in the back. What if I got a better casting than that one? I mean, we'll use this one, but this one's missing a tab for the pencil. All right, we'll paint them both. Oh, that was handy. These have the little ammo drums that in this case carried a 75 round ammo drum, which sounds like a lot, but when you're firing 1,300 rounds per minute, where you can fire 1,300 rounds per minute, 75 rounds doesn't last you very long. All right. That's why I leave this one in here. Okay, folks, so that's where we're going to stop for this morning. We'll be back maybe this evening. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Happy painting. Enjoy your Friday. Get through it. And we'll see you guys on the flip side. Bye-bye.